Today, let's walk through the steps of how to use a shearing foot. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are continuing with our presser foot series to do a shearing foot. Now, a shearing foot, also known as a gathering foot, is a presser foot that allows you to gather fabric. So it is a little heavier on the front. You can see that more heavier piece of metal there, and that actually helps to move the fabric back and forth to create that gathering effect. As you can see, size-wise is about 1" by 1". This is actually the entire foot right here. So if we compare this to our other presser foot, there are a few size differences as well as just shape differences overall. So instead of this being one that you snap in, we're actually going to be screwing this presser foot on, and then we are going to need to use a couple different settings on our machine. The cat wanted to be involved too, so as you can see, she wanted to look at the shearing foot as well, give her own opinion. But with all of this said, we're now going to go over and attach it into our sewing machine to see how to make it work. So like I said, this presser foot is not one that clips in. You actually need to unscrew the entire portion for like your regular presser foot. And if you didn't have anything on right now, then you would just need to have that screw on the side be loose. And then I am now just going to be adding this into my sewing machine. So just pulling it up over that little metal pole that's there and then tightening the screw. So I use my hands, and then once it's time to really tighten it, I then use a screwdriver. Now it is attached though, so we have that ready to go. You want to make sure that your needle is able to go down into the little hole. So if yours, I've seen some actually are very small, could only go in the center, so be sure to adjust that. Next, to get this to work, we need the longest stitch length possible, which is a 5.0. And then we also need to increase our tension. So I do between a 6 and a 7, and I will actually show you some different settings for how that affects it over time. So I'm starting off with some very, very lightweight material, and we are just going to begin gathering and see what effect we get. So as you can see already, the fabric is gathering in the backside, and the more that I do, I'm going to speed this up. You can see that we actually have a lot of gathers in this very lightweight fabric. I have not pulled any threads right now. This is just the result it gives us. So as you can see, I did choose a darker color thread, so you would be able to see where that seam was the whole time. It's just gathering it up there. So now I'm going to reduce the tension and do the exact same thing with the exact type of fabric that we used before. And as you'll see, we are actually now getting less ruffles and there's less gatherings happening, and that's because the tension has gone down. So the higher your tension, the tighter those ruffles are going to be, and the more ruffling effect that you'll have. So you could definitely play around with this for different types of material depending on what you wanted it to look like. So now I said this was best for light to medium weight fabric, so I'm going to use a heavier cotton, and at the beginning it did not really gather at all, so I'm putting my hand behind it to kind of hold some of the fabric that's coming through, just as another technique you could use. And what we'll see is when we were just using it on that higher tension, nothing really happened. But then when I put my hand behind it, we got a few more gathers, definitely nowhere near what it was earlier. So now I'm going to do a lightweight cotton material, have my tension all the way up to around a 7, and I'm going to actually put my finger back here, as you can see, being careful to make sure that the needle does not hit it, and just kind of push the fabric so that it gathers a little bit more. And what we'll see, because this is a lightweight material, we have the tension high, and I am holding that fabric back there, is that we're actually getting a lot of gathers now. So it is possible to get that gathering effect from the shearing foot with cotton fabric. In addition, you could always pull the bobbin thread ever so slightly, similar to how you would in regular gathering if you're doing your 2 rows of stitches, and that will give it a tighter look. So now let's compare all of the different fabrics that we used. So I started off with that very first one that was the very, very lightweight fabric with a very high tension. And I did the same as well for this, except I did pull one of the strings just to see what would happen. And again, very tight, lots of gathering happening. Next, when I reduced the tension, so for my sewing machine, we ended up getting less ruffles. It still had some of that ruffling effect, but nowhere near what it was before. So just, you could play around with it depending on how much gathering you wanted. Then we tried to use a heavier weight cotton material, and at first there was no gathering happening, but then when I put my hand behind to hold the fabric a little bit more in place, we got a few more gathers to show it is possible on heavier fabrics. And then finally I used a lightweight cotton, and we saw that this gathered really well, especially if you kind of block the fabric a little bit in the back, you got even more gathers from it. So lots of different ways you could use this. In addition, you could also use elastic thread in your bobbin to really give this some nice stretch. I'm not going to go over that in this video today though. If that's something you would like to see, so really shearing with that elastic thread, please let me know and I'm happy to do a video on it. I do have a video up where I did a shirt, so I'll be sure to link that. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks so much for watching.